Welcome, it's the Close the Deal show. I'm your host, Terrence McCrae. Every week we bring you information, tips, and insights from entrepreneurs, business professionals, and inspired individuals from the San Francisco Bay Area and beyond. The Close the Deal show also addresses public announcement, Entrepreneur Week, and business professionals who are getting out in the world and making a difference. And if you're looking for strategies to hear as well as learn, remember that, to hear and learn, then you're in the right place. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to be talking with not only a business professional, but we're going to be talking with someone who decided, I want to do something different in the business world. You know, there's a big issue with where to get the right information. Why is that an issue? It's because a lot of times people want to gravitate towards people who they can relate to, who they may know, but most importantly, who's sharing the truth. And today I have a tremendous individual who's changed the face of what Working Sunday is about. His name is Reuben, and he has a podcast. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the Close the Deal show, Mr. Reuben. Welcome.
Hey. Thanks, Terrence.
Thank you for not only coming on the show, but for taking the time out, man. You know,
yeah,
it's
absolutely.
not Sunday.
Yeah. What is it today? Friday.
Yeah,
There we
it's
go.
Friday. It's not Sunday. But, you know, tell us, what is Working Sunday about?
Well, Working Sunday is about the struggle that it takes to become a creative entrepreneur. And so on the podcast, every show features a different individual or set of individuals that have built a business successfully around their passion. And so the latest show is called LA Working Artists, and it's a series of 5 shows featuring 10 artists who have blown their own brand up down in Los Angeles. And so these folks are anything from, one guy started a convention called Designer Con, which has 50,000 plus attendees. It's held once a year, and over 300 artists come and sell their work at this show that this guy runs. Another entrepreneur started a company that makes, of all things, plush organs, like body parts, but cute ones that are like toys. It's just her weird, quirky idea. It's her passion project, but she now sells shipping containers full of them that come over from China, and they go out to Stanford Medical Center, to the gift shop. They go out to all over the place, all over the country. So it's 10 people like that. One person is a legendary graffiti artist that I grew up admiring when I was doing graffiti here in San Francisco. When I was a little kid, he was already an OG, and so I got to interview him. That was an honor. But basically, all of these people have built a career out of their passion. And so that, to me, is what Working Sunday is about, really, is about, you know, the extra effort it takes, the grind, the sacrifice, when you want to not just go get a job, but actually build something from scratch. So
define your target audience.
Creative entrepreneurs, you know, other people who, like yourself, you know, who are working to build something out of nothing. So, yeah.
So when you say you grew up seeing someone that you used to do graffiti with, but he just happened to be an OG, you know, he was already out there in the field. What inspired you to break away from graffiti? You know, even though he stuck with it, What inspired you to pursue another career?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of comes down to like what paths open up for you. Okay. I think a little bit. I feel like folks who really took graffiti to the next level and made that their career, they're extraordinarily talented artists. Me, myself, I could put a marker to a wall just as good as anybody else, but I don't think that like my art was at that level. And so I recognized that. And so what I did instead is I built a screen printing business where we printed T-shirts. And so that became my craft, where I would take designs that other people had made or designs that I had made, and I would transfer them onto a T-shirt through the method of screen printing. And I started doing that just in my dad's garage. And then I first started at an organization in Santa Cruz called Barrios Unidos, which is like a community organization, and their screen printing business kind of funds their nonprofit activities. Then I moved out to my dad's garage. Then I moved out to a one-man shop in West Oakland. Then I moved to a larger facility in downtown Oakland where we had 7 employees. And we basically had a factory that was printing T-shirts. And I kind of explained this in the LA Working Artist podcast, which was that what I realized at a certain point in time is that what my passion was taking artist work and putting it onto clothing. But what paid the bills was companies like Kaiser or companies like, Levi's, who would pay us to print their logo onto something for like a workers' appreciation day or something like that, right? And so like after a while, after about 10 years of doing that, I realized my soul just wasn't in that custom printing. And that's when I branched out, did a few other things. And then when I decided to come back to small business, I was like, rather than just going and diving in and doing my own small business again from scratch, let me like pan out a little bit and look at the bigger picture here and see what everybody else is doing. And that's when I decided to start a podcast.
So you like telling people's story,
I do.
But doing it from your own viewpoint of seeing how they actually started off.
Yes.
Okay. So do you find it challenging at times? Like, what story do you want to tell this week, or what story do you have in mind that may find your viewers interested in?
Definitely. I mean, I've had to teach myself how to be a storyteller, and that's a craft that I wasn't even aware of. In a way, you know what I'm saying? Like, you understand it because when you talk to somebody, there's a certain way in which you layer the information that either gets them interested and they want to know more.
Correct.
Or maybe you start off with the wrong thing and they're just bored. You know what I'm saying? And they want to leave,
Correct.
And I think that you're someone who's really good at layering the information in a good way. So I kind of had to teach myself that. And then it's also like, just being able to commit to something and learn how to produce something from scratch. But what I like to focus on as far as like everybody else's business is their challenges. Okay. So I like to not just talk about the success, like, oh yeah, I mean, I already mentioned this guy, he has a convention that has 50,000 attendees, right? That's successful. But when I go through his podcast, I want to talk about the hard times. What did it look like in the beginning? What did it look like when the credit cards were all maxed out, and the bills were coming due, and he wasn't sure if the thing was going to grow or if it was going to fail, because I think that's more the reality that people can relate to when it comes to a creative grind. You don't just start out and then the next day you're Apple computer, you know what I'm saying? It's
Absolutely.
many, many years and steps, and most people don't make it, to be
Correct.
honest, so you kind of need to be a little less lonely, I think, in that journey, and that's what I hope to do.
Yeah, because when I first listened to it, and this was one of the segments, this particular one, newest season, LA Working Artist, it reminded me on how you could wake up on a Sunday morning at 8 o'clock and turn on any local news channel, and there will always be some type of feel-good type of story being told about someone in the community or recently ex-NFL player or sports player or celebrity doing good work in the community. So it seemed like to me nowadays you don't see that, but you hear it more. So how do you put your face out there in order for people to know it's you that's actually telling the story?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that for me, the first thing is developing the craft. And so there, up until this point in time, it's been about 2 years on this hustle. We had before this last season dropped, we had about 18 episodes. And each one of these episodes, just to give you an idea, because they're highly edited, because it's like I'm taking not just an interview and posting it online, an hour uncut. I'm taking that and I'm chopping it up into small pieces, and then I'm narrating the story on top of that to make it all like one story. So maybe something they said at the end is actually the beginning layer that people need to know to get into the story to make it interesting. So then I got to edit it and put that there. For every minute of podcast, it takes about an hour of production.
Wow.
And so every podcast is 20 to 30 minutes long, which means each one takes about a week to put out. So we had 18 shows. You could say that's 18 weeks, but really it took a lot longer than that because I had to figure out where's my sound guy, what equipment do I use, where do you go buy micro, you know what I'm saying? Like when you're starting anything. So it's been about 2 years. This last season is 5 shows, like I said, featuring 10 people. So it's about 2.5 hours of radio. But I say all that, just to say that I think it's just now gotten to the point with this last season with the LA Working Artists, where it's a refined product that I could feel proud of actually putting out to the world. And so now what we're doing is we're putting out press releases to the LA Weekly, to the East Bay Express, to different local weeklies and newspapers, artist blogs, different folks that we think might be interested in LA Working Artists as a topic, interested in the podcast. Because now I'm proud enough of the product, you know what I'm saying, that when they come there and they listen to it, that I feel like they're going to be getting something that really represents what I'm trying to put out there. So that's been kind of my process. I didn't want to put it out too broadly at first when I didn't really know what I was doing, because what if like the most important person came and listened to it and then they were like, this sounds hella amateur, you know what I mean? And then they didn't come back. So kind of had to refine it. And now it's just at the point now I'm ready, for other folks to listen to it. So yeah, press releases, there's nothing like press, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. So one of the questions that I have in mind is, when you just said, you wanted to make sure you put it out the right type of material because you never know who's listening. That could be the door that opens up other doors.
Right.
So my question to you is, doing a podcast, is it challenging to the point where you wake up one day and say, I don't think this is going to work?
Yeah, definitely.
Why is that?
Mainly just self-confidence and how hard it is to maintain self-confidence when it's a project that you are bottom lining, that you are fully responsible for. Because there's no boss. There's nobody telling me this is good, this is bad. So I can't blame it on anybody else. You know what I mean? There's also no boss telling me, hey, wake up and do this. So you have to, and that's actually one of the nice things that I get personally from working on the show is that I'm interviewing other people about going through that same thing when they started their thing. That insecurity, that self-doubt, sometimes even facing depression, sometimes facing debt, like there's different things that are real struggles that people go through either emotionally or physically and practically. So when I go through other people's stories, it kind of gives me that faith and that courage, like, okay, they've been through it, I can push through it too. So and of course, I've been through it before with my other business. So it is inspiration. Okay. So, yeah.
Definitely. You know what's also inspiration?
What's that?
Your child.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Have you ever decided to talk about a subject matter where a working class woman or a working class man, any type of couple, whatever the case may be, raising a kid, what that's like, and also having a podcast? You ever thought about that?
Yeah. Not specifically them having a podcast, but them having a business, for sure. Yeah. Actually, on the LA Working Artist series, actually the woman that I mentioned earlier who makes the plush toys, she went to her first trade show wearing a 6-month-old baby.
Wow.
And did the whole trade show, all 3 days of it, all weekend. And her girls came and they helped her out. They would take the baby while she had to go use the restroom or whatever. So it's challenging, having a kid it puts everything in perspective, though, I'll tell you that. And sometimes also when I look at, because we have a 15-month-old.
Okay.
And when I look at him, it reminds me how much at the beginning of this journey I am. Because it feels in my head like I've been working on this thing for like 10 years.
Correct.
But I look at him, I'm like, you can't even talk yet. You know what I'm saying? So, by the time he's 5, it'll be 5 years deep. And so, it's just, it kind of puts time in proportion.
So, if someone was watching this show and they just happen to be a big vendor, why would they be interested in your podcast? Because there are so many podcasters out there today.
Yeah.
Radio has changed dramatically.
Yeah, it has.
Like, it's hard for people to get on Spotify. It's hard for people to get on these certain internet radios to the point where, like Heart Radio, how could they benefit you?
Yeah, or vice versa, right? How can I benefit them? I mean, I think that when I wrote the business plan around this initially, and as we all know, business plans change as the business develops. But in the very beginning, what I saw was that there's not a lot of media that focuses on the struggle of small business. There's like Inc. magazine. Most of the time they focus really just on the success. They don't really focus, but they do have some good articles about how hard it is. Other than that, there's really not much out there, and including in the podcast world. I think that I'm one of very few, if not one of the only shows that exist that talks about the struggle of small business, the working Sunday aspect, not the like high five Friday, you know what I'm saying?
Okay.
And so, so I think that so that's my target market. And as I begin to grow audience around that, and as people begin to like tune in and realize, I'm actually benefiting from this message, and I'm entertained, I'm educated, then I think that it's going to be a natural fit for other small businesses who are a little bigger to sponsor it. And so the next season after LA Working Artists is going to be Colorado Craft Brewers. And so I went to Colorado. I interviewed a bunch of different men. They're all men, but I interviewed a bunch of guys who had started breweries. And they're in different phases of production, but they're all still small businesses. But some of them, one of them is actually the largest brewery in the state of Colorado that only distributes to the state of Colorado, right? Because there's bigger ones that distribute nationally. So to sponsor that series, I can imagine a variety of people once we get there, when we start reaching out. It could be the Colorado Chamber of Commerce, to encourage tourism to the state. It could be one of the larger breweries that is a national brewery that, wants everybody to be thinking, when they're thinking Colorado beer, to be thinking about them. And so those are things that might help me fund the podcast so that I can continue telling the small business story. I'm not interested in telling the big business story, but if they want to give me some money to fund it, you know what I'm saying, so that I can keep telling the small business story, I think that's the direction that I'm headed in.
Yeah, there was a story, don't quote me on this, the guy who started Kinko's.
Oh,
you
okay.
Remember that? Do you know a little bit about his story?
Yeah, I feel like I do, but you'd have to remind me a little. Yeah.
He mainly he was a surfer. He was a college kid.
Yeah.
And he started off with the idea of copying. Mm-hmm. But he noticed that he was being interviewed, and he needed to be able to get certain type of paperwork. And he was going all the different places where he couldn't get it. So ideally, he came up with an idea to figure out how he can make it like FedEx's make it, an office type place where they can get the office supplies and the copies, and he just skyrocketed overnight.
The right idea at the right time.
I guess those were those type of stories that led to success. Mm-hmm. But it's similar to yours, because it sounds like to me your stories are way different from a lot of the podcasts out there. You're not talking about sex.
Yeah.
You're not talking about violence. Yeah. You're not talking about promoting drugs.
Yeah.
And you're talking about how a business can impact a community.
Yeah. That's actually the biggest.
And it's mainly people with innovative minds. Mm-hmm. You have an idea, and from that idea, you want to expand it by helping the community. Mm-hmm. Because when you do create a small business, you're within the community, and usually the money goes around full circle.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. It keeps the profits in the community.
Correct.
Yeah.
So where did you get the idea of focusing on Colorado Brewers?
Good question. Well, I think it's because I wanted the show to be national. And of course I started local. And so LA is like an easy branch out. But then, full disclosure, we had a family vacation planned to Colorado around a friend's wedding. So I was like, okay, we're already going to be in Colorado, so we're already spending the money to get there. Let me see what I can do with that. And I started reaching out to different people. And I realized, okay, what is Colorado known for? Colorado is known for action sports. Colorado is known for an outdoor lifestyle. It's also known for beer. I mean, it's one of actually the biggest states for craft brewing. I think they have the most breweries per capita of any state in the country. So I was like, okay. And then so I started reaching out to people in my network. So who knows somebody? And then my friend Zoe introduced me to her friend Shawnee, and Shawnee happens to work for the Colorado Brewers Association or the Brewers Guild or something like that. And so then she was able to, branch me out and so over the course of this family vacation that I had planned, I started this 6 months in advance. I was able to make it a little road tour where I set it up and I just knocked them down, So it's like every little town I went to, I interviewed a different brewer, and I had kind of made those connections happen. And so, I plan to do that in the future, not always around a family vacation, of course, but it's like you think about a place and then you think about what is that place known for, you know what I'm saying? Like maybe Philly cheesesteaks.
Correct.
I could go out to Philadelphia and have a great time, interview all the cheesesteak shop owners, things like that. But then you begin to see, okay, so what are the problems and difficulties that exist within this community? What's making people successful? So then you can start to notice trends across everybody, or what is specific to just those type of people or that industry or that place, and it's like, so, and I'm not sure where that learning will take me yet, but
what sounds like to me is taking you to new heights and continue to expand. That is very creative what you just thought of, and to continue to further that is tremendous. So I got to ask you a question.
Mm-hmm.
What's next for Working Sunday?
Yeah.
In 2019.
Yeah, I mean, I think, the first thing is going to be finishing the editing of the Colorado Craft Brewers series and finishing the marketing push around LA working artists. So what my experience has told me in the past is that you can't just create, release it, and then go right into creation. Whatever that amount of time is you spent creating that thing, you got to spend at least 50% of that amount of time promoting that thing. Like marketing is its own mind state, So we want to get press around LA working artists. So anybody out there, what I'm saying, who has a newspaper, who has a blog, a podcast, I'd love to talk to you about that and see what you're up to. Reuben Lee at workingsunday.com. And then Colorado Craft Brewers, and then after that, I'm thinking California bud growers, because that's a new industry around here. It's a lot of creative people in that, and do something close to home, and then branch out again. Go to another state after that. So we'll see.
Well, Reuben, I want to thank you for not only coming on the show, but I also want to thank you for sharing your insight and how the struggles of what it is in making a podcast. The pitfalls of financial matters, the juggling of raising a family and working, and actually finding those good feel stories. The type of stories that not only people can relate to, but most importantly, they can connect with. Because ideally, it's, something that you've learned how to do by communicating. Mm-hmm. And that's how you're able to share these Working Sunday stories, by letting people know you're not the only one.
Yeah, that's what it's all about.
You're not the only one.
Yeah.
Appreciate you for coming on.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for coming on. Before we close this deal, if you have any suggestions or questions, or want to apply to come on the Close the Deal show, you can contact me at www.theclosethedealshow.com. Remember, San Francisco viewers, Every Monday night, you can find us on cable Comcast on Channel 29 at 8:30 p.m. On every second and fourth Wednesday of the month, you can watch our live shows on the same channel at the same time. Worldwide, you can find us on YouTube. Okay, so you can type my name, Terrence McCray. Okay, please press like to your favorite episode and write a comment. But most importantly, please subscribe. Take good care, everyone. Don't forget, find the right connection and close the deal.